Let's go for it!
Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, here at The Dark Stuff. Thanks a lot for checking out my new video. In just a few minutes, I'm going to be getting to my haul from the Omaha Record Show. It was probably a little better than average in terms of what I got from other record shows that I go to in Omaha. They're quarterly here. I usually hit 3 out of the 4. And this one was pretty good. So we'll get to that in a second. But before I do, I wanted to do a quick shout out and a mention of both a band and a fellow VC member. I'm talking about Dean over at Grandma's Handbag. Now, I'm pretty new to his channel, and I just sort of discovered him within the last month or two maybe. And I've seen maybe 4 or 5 of his videos. And he's got pretty eclectic taste. He's very up on the new stuff, but he also has a pretty good knowledge and depth of the classics as well. In my last video, I was talking about this band called Dreamwife, which is a band from the UK, which features a singer originally from Iceland. So hey, Baraka P. Dub there. It is, that's how there's the Iceland and also the UK connection. But they live in the UK, so there you go. I talked about them being a feminist punk band. He says, hey, have you ever heard of this band from down where I'm from down in Australia, called Camp Cope? And he put a link to one of their videos. I clicked on it, and it was pretty cool. I liked it. It was like real kind of minimalist, had a little bit of a feel of the Slits. It also had really more of a feel of like this band called Scrawl, which is kind of an obscure indie band from Ohio from the 90s, and that I always really loved. You know, they worked all the way up to the major label level. They did have a contract with Elektra in the mid-90s, but that was, you know, the albums, I think there's just one on Elektra, but it flopped, unfortunately. Good record. Travel on Rider is the name of it. So side note. So anyways, so he turned me on to this band, and then I go to my stack of CDs for my radio show, which is generally like this big, and in it was Camp Cope. So fortunately, you know, I already was like primed with a little bit of interest in it. And, you know, a lot of times I have to make real snap decisions on some of those CDs. And it's like, in this case, I gave it an extra listen, and now I really like it. So maybe there would have been some inevitable discovery. But anyways, thanks to Grandma's Handbag for turning me on to this particular record. So it's called Camp Cope. The album is How to Socialize and Make Friends. Okay?
Tell me the truth and maybe I'll come crawling back to you like that's your plan, right?
And then the only other new thing that I wanted to talk about real quick was the new record from this band Sloane. Okay, it's a band from Canada. It's a power pop band. Started in the early 90s. The new album is called 12. It comes out, let's see here. Well, it doesn't say when the release date is, so it may already be released by the time you see this, I'm sure. I was going to tell a quick Sloane story because I was a latecomer to this band because I held a grudge against them for literally the stupidest reason ever, okay? So I lived in Seattle from 92 to about 94, and that was the height of their music scene with Nirvana and Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and all of that stuff. And there would frequently be secret shows by some of the major bands. Like occasionally you'd hear like, oh, Pearl Jam's going to do a surprise show over at the Rock Candy, or, you know, Nirvana's going to be over at the Crocodile Cafe or whatever. And it was always false, okay? And my friends and I used to fall for it. We'd go there and then see it was just a total bust and there was nothing going on. One time, Nirvana was supposed to play at a movie theater, and we blew it off because of the previous 4 or 5 times that it was bullshit. And that they did actually play, so I missed it. So this time, I hear at the Crocodile Cafe that the Melvins are playing, and there is going to be a surprise DGC recording artist performing as well, but they're not saying who it is. And there was also a listening party that night for Kiss Alive 3. So we went down there about 7 o'clock, and I thought, you know what? We've been fooled before, but A, Nirvana did play the last time there was a rumor of a surprise show. B, they are tight with the Melvins. They're friends. You know, Dale Crover played in Nirvana for a long time. And C, they are on DGC Records. Now, this stands to reason that this might be happening. So basically, my friends and I get there. We listen to the Kiss Alive 3. That was cool. We wait about 3-4 hours before the Melvins come on. The Melvins play. They were fucking awesome. The place was packed. You know, the Melvins are done. The surprise DGC recording artist was Sloane. Okay? Huge letdown. For me, anyways. Maybe everyone else there was in the know that it was going to be Sloane and not Nirvana. But for me, I sensed like this big collective sense of disappointment in the room. Now, I was so pissed off by this point because it was 1 o'clock at night when the show, when it happened, that Sloane started. It wasn't fucking Nirvana, and I was like, fuck these guys. I am so out of here. I'm going home. And I went home. And from that point forward, I was like, fuck Sloane. They suck. Truth is, it's not really their fault. You know, maybe they didn't even know that was happening. They are a DGC recording artist. It was a surprise. It's not their fault necessarily. And it sucked that that happened, but I guess I couldn't technically blame them.
Before we start to spin our wheels.
At this point, I own probably 5 or 6 Sloane albums. They are a brilliant power pop band. This one that I've listened to, 12, I've only given it a brief listen, but it's got a little edge in the guitars. I like it. They just write great tunes, and it's too bad that I didn't get to enjoy them in the 90s because I didn't get over my issue with Sloane until probably about 2005 when I sort of forgave them and decided to give them another listen, okay? So it sucks. But Sloane 12 is their brand new album, and it's worth checking out. Okay, now let's get into the goods from the Omaha Record Show. I didn't go right at the opening at 10 o'clock this time because a buddy of mine couldn't make it till 1. So I decided I would wait till my friend got there, and it's probably for the best because from what I've heard from some other friends that were there right at the beginning, it was so packed you could barely move. You could barely dig through the crates because everyone was like on top of you. And I can't stand that, and I'm mildly claustrophobic anyways, and that probably would have made me bug out kind of early and come back later anyways. So it's kind of a good thing that I didn't get there till later in the afternoon. There was still a pretty good crowd. A lot of dealers were still there. But, you know, once they get past that initial wave, a lot of these guys start going, well, 50% off whatever the price is that you see on there. Because now they're at the point where they want to unload some merchandise so they have less to load back into their truck or whatever. So, start off, I got a bunch of missing person stuff. Okay, I picked up this copy of Rhyme and Reason. This is their second album. Now, Spring Session M is their masterpiece, and everything else they did after that is quite inferior to that one record. But this one, you know, had some decent tunes. That Give, that was a hit for them. Right Now was a single, a little too poppy for me, but I always really loved Missing Persons. Spring Session M grabbed me when I was like, I think it came out in '82, so I was 11 years old, and I was into Missing Persons at 11, and they just had that unique thing. And then Dale Bozzio was just so fucking hot back then. I mean, unreal. I also picked up these Missing Persons picture 7-inch or 7-inch. They're not picture discs. They're just with picture sleeves. This one for Words. Great picture of the band on there, including Dale. Inner signature, sort of, you know, 12-year-old me at the time, you know, I'd always be trying to see if I could see anything in her bra thing, you know, but you never could get a look. It was very well concealed. It was 82, 83. It was like hard for that stuff to just, you know, sort of be exposed on MTV. Here's one for Windows. Such a great song off Spring Session M. These were all $2, by the way, so not at all outrageous. Destination Unknown. Okay. So that was pretty awesome. So I got 4 Missing Persons records right off the bat. I grabbed this Bangles 7-inch for walking down your street. I already had this actually, and I knew I did, but it was only $2. So this will probably be VCLT to somebody at some point in the future, because I knew this was a duplicate, but for $2, shit, I mean, why not? A couple years ago, I went to an Omaha Record Show and I picked up a really crappy record by a band called the Pandoras. And I picked it up because I wanted to check out the Pandoras, because at one point Kim Shattuck from the Muffs was in that band, and I love Kim Shattuck. She's so awesome that I just wanted to see what it was. And she looked pretty hot on the back of the record, you know, so I was kind of like, well, let's just get it anyways, you know, and hear what this Pandoras is about. It was terrible. It was cheese metal. It was just awful. And people were telling me, well, you got the wrong record. You got the wrong record, whatever. But I paid like $10 for it, and it was a total bust. So I kind of let this Pandoras thing go until I saw this one at the record show. Okay? This one's called Stop Pretending. And by the way, there's Kim Shattuck right there. And Melanie Vamman is also in the band. Where is she? Right here. She was also another founding member of the Muffs. So here's the back cover there. There's Kim and Melanie. And the leader of the band is this woman, Paula. And she was the one who, it was her band, Paula Pierce. She wrote all the songs. Kim Shattuck was just merely like a backup vocalist and the bass player. This record from 1986 is fucking awesome, okay? Now I understand why there was this talk about how the Pandoras were this really cool band. The one that I got, Rock Hard, was total cheese. It was just fucking just terrible. Don't fall into that trap. But if you ever see this one, and I paid $15 for it, and it does have some cover damage, as you can see on the top. But the record sounded fine, occasional pops and whatnot, but it was okay. And just really good 60s inspired, kind of indie, you know, little punk edge. They did have that a little bit of a psychedelic thing going. I mean, you can see that from the logo. It's trying to be like they're a little 60s, but they had a little more of an edge than the average sort of girl group / punk band. So, anyways, I'm back into the Pandoras. Now I got to seek out their one other album, and I think that's it, because they only had a pretty short career. And I do know that Kim is now fronting the Pandoras, because Paula Pierce died a really long time ago, I think in the early 90s. And her and Melanie are back, and they're doing some Pandoras gigs. And if I lived in California, maybe I'd get to see one, but, you know, it's not the case. Okay, another experiment into the new wave of British heavy metal. I picked up this Tigers of Pantang record called The Cage. It's another one of these bands that I wanted to check out for a long time. To me, they were just a name inside of a Kerrang magazine or something like that. They're just something, it's a band I've heard of, but they never had any sort of audience in America, at least not in Nebraska when I was a kid back in the 80s. So I'd never heard any of this stuff. So I picked this one up, and I got to say I was very disappointed. This is super boring. It's just generic. It's not even that heavy. It's kind of mellow. It's got a lot of keyboards. Now, I did look up a little bit of information online that said that this was an attempt to be commercial, and that attempt was, they were succeeded. It was produced by this guy, Peter Collins, who I know has worked with, like, I think he's worked with, he's worked with Rush for sure, and some other bands, but I don't know. This was 1982. I mean, they do a cover of Love Potion No. 9. Are you fucking serious? Dude, I mean, I don't know. If you're into this band, tell me this is like a weak record by them and what's a better one to try, because this just pretty much sucked, and it made me like, okay, I'm going to move on to the next band. I don't know if it's going to be Raven or Angel Witch or some other band that I don't know, but basically this is not doing it for me. A total left turn there, and I got this Salt and Pepper, their debut album, Hot, Cool, and Vicious. And I do love 80s hip-hop, especially the really classic stuff, and I think Salt and Pepper is really classic.
Ever been to jams where people just stand? They pay to come in and they don't even dance. They're so uncouth. They think they're cute. Am I lying? No, it's the truth. All right.
Now, this is a funny album because this is the original, okay? And it has the original DJ, not Spinderella. She came in after this record. But I started listening to the record, and these tracks are not in order at all, and there's extra songs that aren't on this. So they put this out in 86. This was the original record, okay? And then they had the song Push It came out as a single. They then added it onto this record along with a different version or remix of the song Beauty and the Beat, I think, or Tramp. I'm not sure which one. Anyway, so it's not listed on the back of the jacket of the record. So I think these are the original jackets from the 86 version. Then in 87, when they added Push It on it, the record is labeled correctly, but they just must have had extra jackets or something. So this was a fun record. I mean, Push It notwithstanding, which is a song everybody in the world has heard. This is pretty good. Again, I like the simplicity of the early rap stuff, and I like this a lot more than I thought I would. It was a risk at $8, but I don't know. I don't have a lot of really old school hip hop vinyl, so it's definitely worth it for me.
Do you love me better now? Are you surprised to see that I've been...
Okay, this next one was a total, in a sense, a blind buy. It's by a band called New England. Okay, and the album is called New England. Now, it's a blind buy in the sense I've never heard the band before, but it's not a blind buy in the sense that it is something that I'd wanted to check out. And the reason why is because Paul Stanley is credited as the producer on this record. And so because of that fact, I kind of wanted to see what it was like, And it was pretty average, 1979 AOR type of music. Radio rock, but not even really that good at it. Like, it's decent, not terrible. These guys from New England have more tie-ins to Kiss actually than just that, because what I realized was some of these guys, except the guitar player, of course, went on to work with Vinnie Vincent in like 81, 82, so a couple years after this. While Vinnie Vincent was songwriting with Kiss during Creatures of the Night, but he wasn't yet a member, he was recording a bunch of songs with these guys as his band. Apparently they were called Warrior. They recorded a lot of stuff that later became the Vinnie Vincent Invasion album at a later time down the road. And apparently this stuff was really good. They were thinking about giving it to labels and yada, yada, yada. And then one day Vinnie just packed up all the tapes, took them, left. And next thing they heard, he was a member of Kiss, and their whole project was over. So there's a little bit of history in that sense. And then also, two of these guys ended up being in the band Alcatraz with Graham Bonnet, who was a singer for Rainbow for a bit, who I just think sucks. I mean, I'm sorry. He did a shitty album in Rainbow, and I don't think Alcatraz is that good either, but Alcatraz is best known for their guitar players, actually, because they had Yngwie Malmsteen, they had Steve Vai. So anyways, there's a lot of history in this New England record. There's just not a lot of really good music. It was just very generic in my opinion.
Got any Blue Oyster Cult?
No, I don't have any Blue Oyster Cult. I ate 34 pairs last time around. Where were you?
Okay, still working on completing my Blue Oyster Cult collection. So this one's Mirrors. And this was, the sticker says 12, it was only $6. It was half price. And even though they look kind of cheesy on the back there, this was an okay album. Didn't have any hits off of it. It was the late 70s. It had, I don't know. I listened to it and it was not like the classic jamming kind of Blue Oyster Cult, the sort of riding all these different genres. Are they metal? Are they punk? Are they prog? Are they... are they proto-punk? Are they metal? Are they... I already said metal. I don't even know. The bottom line is that it's very hard to pin down Blue Oyster Cult, and they were kind of all over the place. Sometimes they'd have hits, sometimes they wouldn't. This record had no hits on it, and it was not bad. But again, I'm just more trying to collect every Blue Oyster Cult record, so that's why I've got getting that one. Pretty much, within reason. I'm not getting some of the more recent stuff, I don't think. Live from Earth, Pat Benatar. This is her 1983 live record. It's more like an EP if you ask me, because there's only really 10 songs or 9 songs really on there, and it's pretty short, but It's pretty good. Look, I got a little soft spot for Pat Benatar. I've always kind of liked her. Growing up as a kid, I thought she was good back in the early 80s. And this sounds good. Her voice sounds good. It's a decent recording. It's pretty much all I can say about it. It's good. This is probably about my 5th, maybe Pat Benatar record at this point. I think, again, I've probably exhausted all I can do with Pat Benatar at this point, but I got all the essential stuff. And these last 2 things I didn't actually listen to yet. I didn't have a chance to, but this is a Julian Lennon, and it's still sealed. Okay, this was his 2nd album, The Secret Value of Daydreaming. And if I've heard a song on this is 1986. I don't remember necessarily. I am going to open it at some point, but I was really just attracted to the fact that it was brand new, and it was $5 for still sealed. So that's why I decided to check it out. And, quality to be determined. All right, and then last is Weekend in LA from George Benson, jazz guitar player. It's a 70s record, live record from him. I haven't had a chance to listen to this yet. It's a double album, so it's a lot of music. I am not someone who generally, my jazz taste is very, very limited. I'm more into the bebop sort of era, the late 50s into the early 60s, less into experimental, but some of that stuff is okay. But then my jazz music just kind of ends. I just don't know too much other stuff. So I've never really been that into guitar as a jazz instrument. I'm kind of more about the horns and stuff. But I decided to give that one a chance. I mean, a double live record from George Benson for $5. I was like, if I'm going to like this, this is my best opportunity for trying it out. So again, quality to be determined. All right, thanks everybody. I've got a video coming up where I'm actually going to be talking about this record here. Juliana Hatfield sings Olivia Newton-John, but my vinyl hasn't arrived yet, so I've only got the CD. So I'm not really that's what they, in the business, we call that a teaser. Okay, coming up shortly. Thanks a lot, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.